What's up, everybody? Clint Foshee here, the Front Porch Chronicles, and I'm super stoked. Today we got on a guy most people might know him as a multiple-time NCAA All-American, Big 12 champion, team captain at West Virginia. You know what I mean? But I know him as Killian Cardinale, and me. I met him in an ayahuasca retreat. And you know how, like, there's certain people in life that you can tell are like leaders, but this guy didn't have to be loud, obnoxious, or command or demand in that way. It was just like a silent strongness. So I'm super stoked to have you on, bro. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Yo, what an introduction. That was you got me giddy over here. That was awesome. I appreciate it. And I think it'll be a good conversation. Appreciate you having me on.
You know, I tell people when I first met you, you were like and it was funny because all the animals kept coming towards me, but you were like a cat. And it was funny because we talked about with ayahuasca, people tap into animals. And I was like, you're like very silent. And I could see you like watching and reading the room, and you were seeing who you could feel comfortable with and who you couldn't. And it was like instantly we vibed. And it was like, you were kind of reading, then you're like, hey, you know what? I know this is my guy. So like we instantly hit it off. So I was super stoked. Let's get into it. Before we even get into the wrestling and all of that, if someone met you today and they had no idea about your athletic career, how would you describe yourself?
So it's funny that you like brought up that I was very like almost like a cat, very calm because obviously like we didn't know anyone down there, and so it was very just new. Like I think it's changed throughout the years, but I'd say just like, yeah, a very calm, kind presence. At least that's what I try to be. Yeah, I'd say I'm someone that likes to have fun, is creative, but yeah, very calm. I think I can be like slow to warm sometimes. I think that's like kind of what you were talking about a little bit at the retreat. But I feel like I'll segue into like super serious mode and non-serious mode, and I can do that like pretty well. But yeah, I like to have fun. When it's time to be serious, I think I can be pretty serious. But yeah, I think try to be a positive light. I think if people that don't know me from wrestling, I feel like I try to just, if I'm chatting with someone or multiple people, just try to make them feel good.
Percent. So you hit the nail on the head. Like you radiate like this bright, vibrant energy, but it's not like this like loud, like it's this very stoic. You have this old man soul about you, which is crazy because like you used to be into partying and all of that stuff, but you can tell like you've elevated your game and you have this very old man soul about you, which I appreciate. And so, like, I think we're the same in we have this very serious, stoic when it is time, but we also have this playful, like, vibe energy. So, I think that's how we kind of align. When you were growing up, how were you as a kid?
Wild. Wild. I mean, if you ask my mom, like, I mean, I didn't sleep like a single, that's what she says. I'm sure I did, but I didn't sleep like the first year, like a night through. I mean, I was walking before like either around like 11, 12 months, like maybe even earlier than that, just like driving her crazy from an early age. Yeah, just a lot of energy. Same kind of thing. I feel like I was always like this bright, happy kind of kid with, yeah, just a ton of energy. Bothered the hell out of my teachers all the way till I got to like to high school. They just didn't know what to do with me. Like I couldn't sit down in a classroom for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So yeah, just a lot of wild energy, impulsive for sure, but definitely very kind, caring. But yeah, a lot of wild energy for sure.
You remind me. I said I'm going to get my son for wrestling practice. You remind me a lot. The more that you talk and the more that we're going into, you remind me a lot of him. Like very loving, caring, very energy and just positive vibes and whatnot. Were you always competitive as a kid, or was that something that you grew into?
Uh, Looking back, I feel like I was probably tend to be a bit more competitive than like the average person or the average kid. So it was probably like I was probably predisposed to be more competitive than most. And then yeah, it was definite like as I because when I was young, I played football, baseball, obviously wrestling. But as I developed, I think I saw that I was super competitive and really like that's what I was saying. Like in the beginning, like I was really good at just like flipping a switch of like when I needed to flip it, like
Yeah,
we're gonna lock in and I'm gonna be competitive. Like I remember in the wrestling room when I was younger, I couldn't focus in school, but like that was the place where I could like turn it on and like, okay, I could be serious here and like feel like I can be good at something. And
yeah,
so I think I was always probably competitive from a young age, just in school and sports. And then when I really found sports that I liked or activities that I did, I feel like it just kept developing.
yeah, I got you. So let me ask you, I know your dad wrestled at George Mason. Did that play a role in you getting into wrestling? Or was it something that you just kind of fell into?
Oh yeah. So I mean, both my parents were D1 athletes. My mom played softball at George Mason, but my dad wrestled. It was very competitive wrestler in New Jersey. He was a state champion. Both of his brothers wrestled at a pretty high level in New Jersey as well. And their dad wrestled in Jersey too. And yeah, so it was like he just kind of put me around it from a very young age. He was coaching high schools. I was like, they put me in like a little singlet and shoes when I was like 2 years old. So like I think if you want your kid to do a sport, it's not even like forcing them to do it. It's just like just put them around the environment. And I feel like I just got the wrestling osmosis, if that's the right word. Like it just seeped into me. Just always
Vibe.
around it, watching it. Yeah, just always around it. Yeah, definitely him wrestling and just kind of growing up in that kind of culture.
Who was your biggest influence growing up, do you feel?
It's interesting because I feel like as we go through life and as you get older, depending on like where you are or who you're spending the most time with, I think a lot of times that's where you kind of get your influence from.
Yeah,
Like especially when you're super young, like you're pretty much only with your parents or like your
yeah,
grandparents. And so they're going to be like your biggest influence. And so early on, I definitely think it was probably my parents, just being around them. But then I think growing up like in middle school, high school, sometimes I think if my parents kind of had a tough time with divorce and then like they were always working. And so I
yeah,
think when I was in like middle school and high school, like from a social standpoint, it was like my friends were my biggest influences. But
yeah,
from like a wrestling standpoint, it was the guys wrestling on TV. Like that's kind of when I was growing up, like I remember the first time I like saw the NCAA tournament on TV was like I was like, that is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen.
yeah,
So a lot of it was like those guys of like people I'd never even met, but it's like
yeah.
guys that you idolize. Like whether it be, the Olympic wrestlers or NCAA wrestlers, like that's who like I wanted to be like. Like those were kind of like my superheroes, I guess.
Did you have anybody that you modeled yourself after that you saw? Or that you were just like, that's my dude, like that's stylistically, like that's just, do you feel
Yeah.
like?
I feel like there was a lot of different guys that I would like pull, like, oh, I like this thing about him, or I like that thing about him, and like try to pull from it. So, like, the big names when I was coming up, like, just off the top of my head, like, guys like Jordan Oliver, who's a couple time national champion. I think about obviously like Kyle Dake, Tony Ramos, Mike Zadek, like anyone that if I saw someone that like I felt matched like my energy because I was a very just from a young age I was super offensive aggressive wrestler.
Yeah,
So always watching like the Iowa guys from Oklahoma State that were really good at just offense. But anyone that was just super super tough. Like there's this it's probably on YouTube. There's a really early Iowa wrestling documentary that follows them through like the early 2000s of one of their seasons. And
yeah.
it's just raw, real, just it's really good. You should watch it. I've probably watched it like 100 times when I was younger. Just like trying to be just like those guys.
That's super dope. What do you feel like wrestling started teaching you early on about discipline or mindset?
My mom, I'll have to see if I can find it from her, but she showed me like this thing that I wrote when I was like super young. I must have been like between like 6 and 8 at the time.
Yeah.
But it was like me writing something about wrestling and how I liked it. I remember it was something like, even though it's really hard, like I like that it's challenging, and that like that's probably what it was this ability to like use my body to, I don't know, like I had a belief when I was a lot younger that I was not very smart or good in school, and so I felt like this was the one area that I could excel at, and so
Yeah.
I think when I was young though, it was just about like feeling like I was getting better at something, and like finding success in something. But really what I think it teaches, like if you look like as an adult looking back down, of just like how to get good at something, how to lose, and like how to bounce back and not just give up after you don't see success right away.
100%. I think it's super cool though that you felt like you were successful at it, so it made you dive deeper into it when you didn't feel like you were necessarily successful at the other things. Which is cool because most of the time when people don't feel successful at stuff, usually what they do is they end up quitting at everything. So to see you be so determined to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm good at this. I'm going to keep going." That's super dope to think about that aspect of it.
And I think it's helped me in other areas as I've grown up, because then I can look back and be like, oh, I can apply what I've learned in this sport to really just anything that I go into. And I used to not think like that in like high school or middle school. I was like, oh, I'm just not good at math, or I'm not good at like XYZ. But really I just was not, maybe I wasn't interested in that stuff,
Yeah.
which has something to do with it too. But at the same time, it's like if I want to and I can apply myself just like I did here, I can
Ooh.
get good at that.
That's a aha moment right there. Like I felt that. I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's super dope to look at it that way. You know, you ended up having an insane high school career, over 160 wins, three-time Virginia State finalist, two-time state champion, Argo All-American. Insane to think. When you look back at those high school years, what stands out most to you?
So it's kind of funny because I wrestled Division 1 for 6 years,
Yeah.
and I've almost like discounted the 4 years that I wrestled in high school, because I feel like, truthfully, like when I was going to the next level of D1 wrestling, it's like, okay, like I'm good, but I'm not that good. I was comparing myself to guys that were also coming in, but also just like the flow wrestling top 10
Yeah.
rankings or intermat. Like I was never in that. Like I think I got in the rankings like one time. I made the my senior year of Super 32. I think after that I was in the rankings like one time, but then I was never in the national rankings maybe one other time. So it's kind of insane. Like when you said all those highlights, I was like, dang, like I was pretty good. Like that's badass. But I honestly didn't think I was like that good. Like I was good for my area and my state, but like I was still chasing this like I'm not where I want to be just yet. But when I look back at like high school, and this is why I think I was so successful in college, is I had a lot of resources even in high school. Like I had, good coaches. I had a club coach that used to train up at Foxcatcher. He wrestled with Dave Schultz, like was a two-time All-American himself at George Mason. But it was such a learning phase in high school. Like I was just trying to be a sponge as much as possible, wrestling at my high school practice, but then also hitting up my club coach's kid every second I could, be like, yo, like, let's get a drill in, like, let's get extra workouts, like constantly just watching film, watching flow wrestling. And so when I look back, like, yeah, I wrestled a ton and I accomplished quite a bit, but it was so much I was learning and just like obsessed with it. And I think like this is for younger wrestlers, and honestly just any wrestler at any level that they're at. You hear all the time like, oh, you gotta be obsessed with with the process. You got to be obsessed with the sport. And I think that's true. But first, what I think has to come is like the love of the sport. Because I think too many people, honestly, in whatever sport, is like they try to become obsessed and they like force themselves to do this thing that they don't love. And I think and the love kind of like it's never like, oh, I'm 100% loving this right now, because some days it sucks, but you have to have that like it as a foundation of like, I enjoy this, I love this, and then the obsession becomes almost like a byproduct because you just love the sport so much, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. If you don't have the love, and like people use that so loosely and they try to make themselves obsessed. And what happens is that's why you have so many people that get burnt out. You have so many people that don't reach their higher level because being obsessed is great, but it also can be toxic because if you don't love it, and you're obsessed, those two things don't align together. So, like, you have to love the game. You have to love the grind. And I think that for anybody in life, wrestling, anything, if you're not in love with something, you might as well let it go because it's like one of those things that you're never going to really do anything with it. Did you feel pressure in high school, like with having the resources and the things you did? Or was it you were just kind of learning and you were just kind of going with the flow?
Yeah, I definitely think that when I was younger, I didn't handle pressure as well as I learned how to.
Yeah.
I think like I was pretty like in Virginia I was really good. Like I would only maybe get like a couple, good
Grinded
competitors.
out matches.
Yeah, like up in, if you're from Pennsylvania or like, even like California, Illinois, like you're gonna get a decent amount of hitters, like quite a bit. But depending on where you're at in wrestling, like you might not find, national caliber guys every so often.
Yeah.
But when that would come up, right, and I would have a big match, I think it was very much me trying. I wrestled. I had a chip on my shoulder for sure.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, I definitely had a chip on my shoulder of I want to prove that I can become the best, be one of the best. Just never feeling like I was good enough, and like that can help for a while too. Like that kind of fuel is good
Energy. Yeah.
to a point. And so I think I did handle pressure pretty well. Not nearly as well as, once I got to college, but I think yeah, it was I was still learning a ton, but I definitely was still focused too much when I was younger on outcomes, winning, losing, maybe my ranking, just things that didn't matter, to where once I started to jump levels, I realized that stuff was not important.
Yeah. 100%. Speaking of that, the next jump, you went D1 wrestling. And that's a whole different world, as you talked about, because it's like everybody in the room, it was the guy where they were from. What was that transition like from for you?
So I think what happens sometimes, and I can't believe it happens, is like guys they'll come from high school wrestling and they don't expect it to be hard. Like I knew once like even when I committed and I hadn't even wrestled Division 1 yet, I knew it was going to be the hardest thing. Like I knew it was going to be way harder than high school wrestling. So that's something where I think it's like you have to expect it to be really, really difficult, really, really hard. Because, like you said, right, everyone in there is like the best guy on there, especially D1, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone in there is the best guy from where they're from, or they're the man. And so you almost have to be willing to, now I'm this big fish in this, relatively small pond coming out of high school. Now I'm a small fish in this ginormous pond. So I got to learn a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think really the transition was for me, it wasn't the work ethic. Like a lot of guys, it kind of depends. Some guys come in with already an amazing work ethic and they really need to develop technically. That's where I was at. Some guys are really talented technically and they got by on their talent and they need to figure out how to work harder.
Yeah.
I was the opposite. I had so much work ethic. I needed to develop technically. And so that's really where my jumps came in college, was just technique and breaking things down.
Was there a moment that hit you when you first got there that you were just like, okay, this is a different level?
There were lots of moments where that happened. One of the first ones, mutual friend of ours, Chris McCade, was he had just graduated, so
Man,
he was on the coaching staff. And the first school I was at, Old Dominion University, program got cut, unfortunately, while I was there. But we would set up this thing called Granby Camp.
yeah,
And so there would be, youth wrestlers there. The way that they would tell it to us freshmen coming in and all the wrestlers is, you guys are going to come and you're going to work the camp. This is to also, here's like a little message to wrestlers that are coming from senior year, maybe going and wrestling in college. I skipped out on my senior beach week to go hang out and get drunk with all my high school buddies and hang out with a
yeah,
bunch of girls to go and move down to Old Dominion to start wrestling, training, and doing Granby camp. And so it was like 5 days after I graduated high school, I was already down there and training.
yeah.
Right. So you already see, like, I'm putting in the things
The
necessary to
work, yeah.
become the next level. And that's just a choice I had to make. But specifically down there on Granby Camp, I remember we were not there to work at all. They were there to kill us freshmen. And I mean, we had like 3 sessions a day where we were like, they put us next to the little kids, but they were just running us through our own college workout. And
Gauntlet.
so, I think the first time you go live is like, that was like a wake up call where I'm like, guys are guys are not here, like, they're not fucking around, right? Just getting my absolute handed to me. But I loved it, dude. Oh my gosh. Like, I was like, I'll get my ass kicked all day. Like, this is awesome. But that was the moment where I was like, damn, we gotta work out 3 times a day, 5 days a week this week. Like, this is gonna be crazy. I mean, by the second day, you're getting baby powder and putting it on your armpits, your gooch, your asshole, the whole 9 yards. So I was like, all
Struggle is
right,
real.
yeah. So right there, I was like, okay, this is legit. This is the big leagues now.
Well, college is a time where a lot of people figure themselves out. There's pressure, expectations, freedom, distractions. Looking back now, was there a moment during that time when you had to step back and really reassess the direction that you were heading with your
But yeah, multiple times. And I think like God, the universe, whatever like you kind of believe in, that he'll keep putting things in front of your face until you like answer the phone, or like maybe the phone's already answered but you hang it up, right? So I was a very serious wrestler. Like, I was actually making an Instagram thing about this before we hopped on, but it's like when you get to that level of something and you are so serious about it and committed, like it demands so much from you, like your weight, your diet, you have an expectation of like you got to be really good in school as well. All these things, like you're essentially a professional athlete at this level. Like this is the highest level of folk style wrestling in America. And so for me, like when I wasn't in like that serious mode, like I could also, like I said, I could flip that switch pretty easily. So like when it was time to like let go and have a little bit of freedom or like have some fun and party, like I'm going all in on that.
yeah,
And I mean, I had some fun moments, but it was to the point where like every time I was drinking at ODU, like I was blacking out and like just missing hours and hours of my life. And there were many times where I would wake up and had broken something, don't remember, or was mean to somebody, or just like not good things would happen when I would drink and party. But like
yeah.
I wasn't getting the message of like, oh, I thought this is just like this is college, like this is kind of like the lifestyle. But it wasn't until I got arrested. Yeah, I got arrested, and that was when I was like, okay, this is probably not a good thing anymore. And so like I didn't drink the whole rest of that season, but even like getting arrested, having all the like some charges and having to pay like the restitution and stuff like that, it still wasn't enough. Like I guess I was just too stubborn to listen. And then there were a couple more moments where drinking, partying. One moment I woke up like with my buddy, but like I was driving the car. So like I like woken up out of a blackout. And then I
Yeah.
woke up like woke up in my bed the next morning just fully clothed. And I'm like, all right, like I keep getting lucky. Like eventually it's going to run out. And so I had to like take a step back and just realize like, okay, alcohol and this stuff probably isn't the best for me anymore. But it's funny, like right after I got arrested, I had the best season of my career. Like I stopped drinking for that season and I locked in, and then I had the four best seasons of my wrestling career during college.
Crazy. That's crazy. When you look back now, do you think that that moment kind of shaped the man that you've become now?
For sure. I think if that moment didn't happen, like if I didn't get arrested, and there wasn't like, the consequences like really right there in my face. Cause like, I mean, anyone listening to this, if you've gone to college or it's like, this is honestly probably like what we're talking about. It's probably more the norm than the exception. Like with
Exception.
people partying and drinking and things like that. Like it's probably more the norm at big schools at least. And if that didn't happen to me, like it was just so normal to get, blacked out, break things, like just have this like crazy lifestyle. But if that didn't happen, I honestly probably I might be dead, I might be in jail right now. Like I'm when I look back, like I always tell people like I'm glad that it happened. Like I needed to go through that to like jump the next level. So yeah, it was pivotal. Like if it didn't happen, I think I'd maybe be dead or behind bars.
I agree 100%. And I can tell that when you speak on it, like I can tell it was an aha moment for you and how it kind of shifted your mind. Thank God, because you wouldn't have been the man. And sometimes I think God puts us through, and we're in this coaching program now. I think God puts us through trials and tribulations for us to be a light and to help other people through their stuff. So I think, thank God that you did get that wake up call and that you are the man that you are now, because I know and I feel in my heart you're going to help change a lot of people's life. And that shit is powerful, powerful.
I appreciate that. It's funny. Some of my teammates at West Virginia, throughout my time was there, be like, "Wow, like you're really like a lot of times guys would ask me questions about like performance or psychology. They're like, wow, you're really wise," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like I've been to fucking hell. I've been through some shit, and so it's like, but you got to face it. I think the more you try to like avoid it or like put it away, put it to the side, it'll bubble up and it'll just show up in your life in areas.
Eats away at your soul. I did it for 48 years. Thank God ayahuasca helped me take off the goggles. You transferred from ODU to West Virginia. How was that transition for you?
It was kind of two-edged coin. Like it was really, really hard just when it happened because it was 2020. So it was like right during COVID, they just cut our wrestling team. So it was like the worst 2, 3 weeks. Like the national tournament gets canceled. Like first time I qualify for nationals, they cancel that. So I can't go to that. And then like a week or two after that, like we're on lockdown, can't go to class, the world's isolated. They pull us on a Zoom call and they just are like, "Yep, we're cutting the program, peace." And so there's a lot of us that are like, "Well, we got to go find a new place to go and wrestle at if we wanted
Yeah.
to keep wrestling." And it was during the lockdown. So most of the time, like when you are getting recruited, like you can go visit other schools, you can meet the coaches in person, see the facilities, see apartments. But like we couldn't do any of that because it was
COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
So I was having to take all these like virtual visits, like on Zoom calls, and they're walking me through the wrestling room. So it's like pretty cool. And it was like a cool time in my life because I had done really well that season. And so my stock was
Yeah.
really high. So I had a lot of schools wanting to recruit me. And so it was like divine timing as far as that goes. But it's funny because like like at the same time I'm on probation for getting arrested back in the fall, and no one knows it. So I'm this like pretty high stock. Like people are coming after me, like wanting to recruit me because I did really well. But like
Yeah.
I got a little secret. But I ended up going to West Virginia because I'd met the coaches in high school. They used to coach at a different school.
Yeah.
And so I already had like had somewhat of a relationship with them. It was like pretty close to my house at the time. What I was studying, it like aligned with the program here. And I just the scholarship made sense. So a little bit of money talking. And I felt like I could accomplish my goals there. But like once we got there, right, like it was so hard too because a new school, new team, bunch of new coaches, and it's still like during the lockdown. And so like
Yeah.
they're having two separate practices so we can like have a certain amount of people in there at a time. Like we're having to get COVID tests every couple days. Basically, classes were still kind of Zoom, not really in person that first semester, like masks. So it was definitely
Overwhelming.
overwhelming and like but honestly just like isolating, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
I don't even get a chance to like meet these new guys or like I can kind of hang out with them but like at the same time not really because it's so weird with COVID. So once like January hit though, that's when things kind of started to get a little bit more lax, and I think we started traveling more as a team, and so I got a lot more connected with those guys. But I mean, it was really hard at first because, like, I mean, I loved my old coaching staff, all the teammates, and it just felt like it happened so quick, right? It was like, it wasn't like when the program got cut that we could like hang out with everyone and like say our goodbyes. Like, it was such a weird time during the whole
Yeah.
world. And so, yeah, it was just really weird. But it ended up being like the best thing to happen to me, I think. So,
Yeah. You went on to be a multiple time NCAA All-American, Big 12 champion, and team captain, which is insane, especially going through all that. When you reach that level, what did that represent to you?
so it's funny because when I talk to young wrestlers or really to anyone, I'm like, I was an All American before I was an All American. Um, and
100%.
what I mean by that is the head coach here, Tim Flynn at West Virginia. If you ask him like, who's the most professional athlete that you've ever worked with, and I'm tooting my own horn here, but he's gonna say me. And the reason why is because, like I said, kind of in the beginning, like I viewed myself as a professional athlete. Doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect, but I'm actually going to, like, I think what they call collegiate wrestling is still like amateur wrestling. But I'm like,
Yeah.
once you get to this level, like you can't go any higher for folk style wrestling. So it's like I'm at the pinnacle. So I need to treat myself like a professional. And so I was doing all those things throughout the regardless of the results. Like if I win or if I lose, like I'm going to do the same inputs that I'll always do. But like once I placed at the nationals and I kind of got to that level, it felt like the culmination of just like looking back at like 10, 15 years of work of like, because when you're young and like if you actually follow the wrestling and the culture and you get involved with it, it's like, you're watching these guys wrestle on Saturday, whether it's in the finals or whether it's like Saturday morning, and it's like almost weird. Like I remember having my mom pull me out of school, and I can remember like watching these guys on TV, and I can almost like smell the springtime flowers of like I'm gonna open up the windows in my living room and I'm gonna watch. Like it was consumed me,
Yeah.
and it was like cool because it was like a full circle moment. I set this goal like 10 years ago of like I want to do that, and then I actually did it. And I got on the podium. I got to wrestle on TV. It was like that day when you actually step on the podium. It's cool. If you've ever placed at the national tournament, you probably know what I'm talking about. After the finals, you have to wear your uniform to like go and step on the podium. And so like you can change into it, but like I was just gonna wear it there. And so you're
Yeah.
kind of like you're walking around on Saturday evening in your warm-ups, and like everyone else is either done wrestling and anyone else that's wrestling is gonna be in the finals. And so you can kind of tell like if someone's in their warm-ups, you're like, oh, like it's like he's a part of this select few that can like
Yeah.
place at the national tournament. Like if you're wrestling, honestly, in college at any level, hats off to you. Like it's fucking hard. So I just felt like super big. Like I'm
Yeah.
a short guy, but I just felt like big. I felt like, wow, like this is I wanted to do this forever, and I finally got to do this. And it's cool too because it's like I was saying, like you idolize those guys when you're young, and then it's like you come full circle, and now it's like you're the guy that kids like idolize, which is just like it's crazy.
It is, especially knowing that so many people like when they saw us together, people are like, "Oh my God, you know Killian?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it's always crazy to me because I know what you are athletically, but to me, I think of you as something more than that. So it's like I see you for that. They see you for that, but I'm like, well, he's a super dope dude. Like he's super like beyond just the wrestling. A lot of people don't know this. We've kind of talked about this, but your senior year, you actually were wrestling on a torn knee, which is insane to think you placed, what, seventh in the country with a torn knee. How bad was the injury?
So there was a span of I don't know if I was ever like healthy throughout my college career. Like there were moments of it where I was, especially if you're wrestling in college, like you know what I'm talking about, where it's just like the
Something always
constant.
hurts.
It's something, yeah. It's always something. A finger, a rib, a ankle, a thing, like all these lingering chronic injuries, right? Um, and so what had happened like that summer, so going into the fall of it was 2022, like I had arguably like the my most healthy season the season before where I won the Big 12s. Ultimately I didn't place that year. I was lost in the blood round, but I had like my most healthy season, but kind of I was training a ton that spring going in the summer, and I just my toes. There was something wrong with my toes, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was turf toe, or was this, or was that, but I find out that I had like these essentially bone bruises in both my big toes that would not heal. They wouldn't go away. I took like almost 2 months off. They still didn't heal, and then it was like mid October, kind of either like first week, second week of practice, because I had not done like if you hurt your toes, it's so weird because it connects to everywhere else in your body, and so you're gonna start compensating with different areas.
Everywhere.
And I think my knee just got super weak from being off the mat, not being able to do like the normal knee rehab things I would do,
Yeah.
and my ACL just must have been super weak, and so I ended up tearing my ACL in like yeah, like the second first or second week of practice, and I have a decision to make to this was my 6th year, and I had already been like debating like am I gonna wrestle another year? Like 4 years in college wrestling is tough, but like 6, like I'm an old man. I'm old. And so I had to like, okay, do I want to get surgery on this, or do I want to try and wrestle on it? And I had to I had to give it my all. And I had like kind of a theme that season, which was I don't know if you've ever J.R.R. Tolkien is the guy that wrote like
Yeah.
The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. The Hobbit. Yeah.
There's a movie about his life, and he had a crazy life. Like his mom died when he was super young. He ended up like going to like getting drafted to World War One. Like almost all of his best friends from childhood died in World War One. Like crazy life. But him and his little buddies had this like this war cry, like this saying where it was like a Viking mythology place where if the warriors died in the wrong way, they would go to like this place called Hell, which is
Yeah.
like, and dying in the wrong way would be like dying peacefully, dying in your sleep, dying of old age. But like
Yeah.
Vikings, they don't go out like that. Like they want to go out in
Jeez.
battle. Yeah, they want to go out like fucking gangsters. And I watched that movie when I was like healing my knee and rehabbing, and I was like, that is the thing. Like if I'm gonna do this, like I ain't gonna go out on surgery. I'm not gonna go out saying like, oh, I got a torn ACL, which is like understandable. Like if you have a torn ACL, it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't maybe wrestle. But I'm like, no, like you're gonna have to carry me out on a stretcher before I stop wrestling. Like I'm gonna do everything possible to keep wrestling until I just physically can't go anymore. That was my mindset. That was my motto. And then so I end up rehabbing my knee, and I end up getting 10-0 on that season. And then I turned my meniscus.
Sheesh.
And then so I have to figure out how to like what to do after that. Like, and that was 30 days before the national tournament. And they said you can get surgery on your meniscus, or or like we could scope your knee out and maybe you can wrestle, or we're going to repair it and you'll definitely be done. And after talking with like some of my parents, my coaches, I was like, scope that bitch out. We got to at least try.
Yeah.
We got to at least try. So yeah, that was crazy. I mean, it was just injury after injury after injury. And it's like, it's not even so much, like, wow, that's super tough and things like that. But what I think is like, what I'm most proud of when I look back on it, um, because I didn't get on the mat until like 5 days before the national tournament, just because I was recovering from my knee. And then that morning of the tournament, I tore cartilage in my ribs. So they were shooting lidocaine in me to numb my ribs. But it's not even like, wow, that's so mentally tough. It's more so like just shit kept coming my way. And obviously, I had moments where I was like freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but like I could calm myself down and be like, nah, like no matter what's coming, like I'm gonna still step up to the plate and at least try. I'm gonna at least like the man in the arena. I'm gonna feel like what it feels like to succeed or fail, but I'm at least gonna go out there.
Dude, that is the shit about you. Like, where people are like, oh, he's such a great wrestler. And I'm like, for me, great wrestler, but for me, your mental fortitude and your fucking drive and your determination to be like, my fucking knee is wrecked and there's no excuses. There's no like, oh, I couldn't go. It was just like, fucking, I'm gonna go do this and whatever is gonna be is gonna be. That to me makes you a legend in my eyes more than any of the accomplishments, the wins and stuff like that. And it goes back to like what you said earlier about being so focused on the wins or the accolades or whatever. To me, I think that's what makes you a legend more than any of the awards, the All-Americans, all of that stuff. To do that shit and come in seventh, to think at the highest level and to come in seventh with a completely fucking wrecked knee is insane. Insane.
Yeah, dude, I really appreciate that. And it's funny you say that because at West Virginia University, they like at the banquet, end of the year banquet, like they give out
Yeah.
certain awards, right? You got like the MVP, most improved, like most takedowns, most pins, I think like most wins, things like that, right? But there's
Yeah.
something called the Mountain Man Award.
Yeah.
And basically what it is it's like who exemplifies the culture like the best. Like and it doesn't have to like it has nothing to do with wins or losses. It's just like who exemplifies like what it means to like be part of this program the best. Clinton, I was there 3 years. Guess how many times I won it?
All three.
All three, baby. All
Why do they
fucking
not
three.
name the award a Killian Cardinale award? Because that,
I'll tell
what you just said is like the epitome of exactly what I was talking about. When you mentioned the award, I was like, okay, that's like hand down.
shit. I'm gonna have to mention that to him. They gotta rename that award.
I'm gonna tag them. When you zoom out and you look at your journey, what do you want to most be known for besides just the wrestling side of things?
Such a good question. I think I'm going to tie this back to wrestling for a second because I think it's important here. I think I'd want to be known as, I mean, there's so many things that maybe you want to be known as, but in general, when I was wrestling here, we talked about all the time, it's like be a fountain and not a drain. A fountain is gonna give good energy, it's gonna be positive, it's just giving, right? A lot of positivity, good energy. And a drain, like you don't want drains around you or on your team, right? They suck out all the energy, they're negative, they're just like, fuck, man. And so regardless of wrestling or like the trials and the tribulations, it's like, if people are talking about me or like when they remember me, it's like, can I be remembered as like a, a drain or not a drain? Don't want to be remembered as a drain, a fountain.
Yeah.
Like someone that just gives, super positive, leads by example. Yeah, that kind of
I would
stuff.
say leads by example 100% because a lot of people have a lot of good shit to say and they have trials and tribulations, but they don't live by example. So that's one of the things with you. Everything that you did was living by example, and that's epic for somebody to kind of live it. Because again, a lot of people can say great things, but it's the ones that actually live it. When you look back at the younger version of yourself, the kid that was grinding, the pressure, the mistakes, the injuries, what do you wish someone would have told you during that?
I think it's interesting because I'm sure during my time as, like when I was kind of being a delinquent in some areas, like when I was really young, and then like a kind of a degenerate in, you know, kind of in college, but then also like having this super athletic side of me. I'm sure that what I would have wanted to hear, someone probably told me. And I just didn't, I probably didn't listen or have like the maybe capacity to understand what they were saying. And so I think like I'm not sure what I would have wanted someone to tell me, but if I was talking to that kid, I would honestly just tell him like, "Yo, like it's going to be okay. You just got to keep doing what you're doing." I think a reason that I was such a, troublemaker or like did all these things outside of wrestling was cuz honestly, I was probably super uncomfortable with myself or my environment and I just didn't know like how to handle it. And
Yeah.
so, honestly, I'd probably just tell him like, "Yo, it's gonna be okay." I would probably tell myself like, "It's good to take things seriously, but at the same time, like, relax a little bit. Nothing
And
too
you are
crazy."
enough. And you are enough.
Yep.
That's one of the things we struggle with. Do you think a lot of young athletes struggle with that, but just don't talk about it?
From just like a self-love, like being enough
Yeah.
kind of perspective. Yeah, it's gotta be. It's probably an epidemic if I were to guess, but it's definitely not talked enough, or they don't. No one talks about it because it's like this double-edged sword kind of a thing. Because on one end, like you need to be striving for something, and you have to try and get better. But what I found and when I feel like I made the most jumps in my athletic performance was when I realized like, okay, I don't need to come from this place of like lack anymore. Like I don't need to come from this place of like I'm not good enough maybe compared to this person or if I don't win, I suck. It's like reframing how you view winning, losing, and then just like not trying to get external validation from this stuff. Like I feel empty and winning and getting validation is going to make me feel good. But that's only going to happen if you keep winning, if you keep like you're always going to have to keep
You're
getting
chasing a
things
high.
outside. Exactly. Like you're always going to have to keep getting things outside of yourself versus like if you can already feel good about yourself or like already know that like I'm whole, I'm good, I'm enough. Like I'm content with where I am, but I'm going to keep learning and trying to get better. But yeah, like athletes I think don't talk about that stuff enough. I feel like it's coming out more and more, but I think what's really tough is for coaches right now to where like they probably grew up in that like
100%
they grew up in that like you don't talk about emotions or feelings. It's like
feelings.
no, that's like, we don't do that. It's like just shove it all down, push it in. And this is where like I feel like in sports, specifically in wrestling, there's not enough like nuance. Whereas like sometimes you do have like if you're in the wrestling room and you're going through like a grind match, like, yeah, I don't give a shit about how you're feeling right now or like your feelings. Like we're gonna punish you right now. Like we're gonna make you suffer a little bit. But then it's like, okay, if I'm on a losing streak and I'm like I'm doing all this stuff in practice, it's like you gotta look at other things like your emotions, your spiritual
Why?
stuff.
Why? Because most of the time
Exactly.
there's something like an underlying thing. It's like this slippery slope as because they grew up in a different mindset or frame. And it's like, I can push you and I can push you over the edge to get you to go. And it's like, that works for some people, and every person is different. That's where it's like, coaches, you got to be multifaceted and understand it. I've got 5 kids. Some of them I have to yell at, some of them I just have to say, hey, you really could do better. And like they'll change. Like understanding each one of them is different because this world is crazy. And like I know like people don't want to talk about feelings and emotions, but those things are so fucking important for people with sports and beyond sports. So
Once I feel like I started to dive more deep into like that kind of stuff and just like why am I doing the things I'm doing and things like that. Like I just felt better and my performance just got way better. But like you were saying, how everyone's different, it's like what I was alluding to before. Like, I think sometimes, I think in college right now it's getting better, but across the board, whether it's youth wrestling, high school wrestling, wherever, I feel like too many people we try to put on like a cookie cutter approach with wrestling and probably just athletics in general. Where like I was saying before, when I was coming into college, my work ethic was like I was probably the hardest worker at ODU, I was probably the hardest worker at West Virginia, but I needed to develop technically.
Yeah.
Whereas some guys, they are really talented, but their work ethic is shit. And so it's like
Yeah.
you can't train us the same because we're too different. And so that's where it's like you got to figure out what people where they're at and like where they're trying to go.
You
Yeah.
know, doing this show, I realized there are a lot of people that are struggling quietly. They feel like nobody hears them, they feel stuck. And some people are where they feel like nobody's listening and they just don't want to keep going. What would you tell somebody that's listening today that's at that?
So there's this thing that I like, whether it be in like relationships or just like honestly anything. I call it like getting it in the air. But first, it's like no matter what someone's going through, I think our minds and our egos, like they make us feel like the main character of everything. And it feels like that this thing that I'm going through, whatever it might be, is like whether it's trivial or whether it's like a big thing in my life, it feels like it's the most important thing. It's like the most painful, whatever it might be. And a lot of times, like it hurts in that moment. A lot of times when you take like a long term view or you take a step back, you're like, usually I'll be grateful that this thing happened or I'm going through this thing. It's preparing me for something, like it's happening for me, not to me. But what I was gonna say is a lot of times when you can like speak it out loud, whether it's to like another person or to just like talk about something, whatever it might be. Could be a hard
Yeah.
conversation you have to have, could be something you're struggling with. Could be like in a wrestling standpoint, like you might be mad at your coach or like you
Yeah.
might be pissed off at something and like you could like keep that in and let it fester or you just go and put it in the air. And usually, a lot of times, like once you start communicating about something, it's not what you thought it was. It was a miscommunication here, or it's like, oh, that's why it was happening. So, a lot of times, it's just like get it out of the dark and just put it in the light, whatever it is. Yeah. It's just like get it out there, start to move with it.
Yeah, that's what happened. A lot of people sit on it and it's cancerous. You know, you spent years grinding in one of the toughest sports there is. You've gotten out, you've been successful. What excites you about this next chapter that you're going in of your life?
Yeah. So it's interesting because we pretty recently obviously had like a pretty I'd say profound, at least I think for you, it was probably profound transformational experience. And it brings up a lot of things like, where am I going? What should I do next? Since I finished wrestling, I was doing been doing direct sales for a couple years, just learning the skill set, learning just all the different things of how to communicate with a lot of different types of people. And I had planned on doing it again this summer. The industry I was in, we would do it during the
Yeah,
summer. I got some messages during ceremony about maybe that might not be the move. And I think, what I'm excited about is taking some of these skills that I've learned just through wrestling, through life, through sales. And I want to honestly just give back, I think, to the sport that kind of made me who I am and focus more on a lot of the things that we're talking about and just addressing the holes that I'm seeing in athletics, seeing in wrestling. Cause I mean, you can go on Instagram and YouTube and see a million technique videos and things like that. But I think where something is lacking, and I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but just like how to become an elite athlete, how to become an elite wrestler, and really just trying to build I think a business around that and a brand. And it's scary, but at the same time it's like it's pretty exciting, so I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go in the future.
I'll say this, you'll be successful at whatever it is that comes just because, like most of everything that we've talked about with your life, You're a hard worker, you're dedicated, uh, and have a can't die attitude. And those things you can't replicate, you can't teach, and you have those things about you. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I personally look forward, we're going to be in classes together. I personally look forward to the next steps of your journey and kind of being a brother with you in that. A lot of people see the outside, the accomplishments, the titles, the American, All American finishes, the wins. But what they don't see is kind of something that I've seen, and I've kind of talked about it repetitively on here, but it's the growth that you've had, the struggles, the moments that there were life forces that made you choose the tougher path and you never once flinched. And that for me will always and forever get my respect and my loyalty. I appreciate you coming on. I'll be here with you. We're locked in forever.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you coming on, Bob.
No, yeah, I appreciate those kind words and just thanks for, letting me share the space, let me tell my story. And and yeah, it's cool. Like when we were down there in Colombia, like you definitely can feel like the vibe and yeah, man, you're just someone that I respect a ton. I think we're probably similar in like that. We've got like that light-hearted kind of energy, but I know when Clinton can lock in on something too, it's just like he's gonna go all in and get it done. But yeah, man, one of my favorite people in the world for sure.
Appreciate it, brother. And the same thing for me. I'm fixing to go take my son to wrestling practice, and like I said, I see a lot of you in him, and so I can't wait till you get to meet him.
Oh
And we
yeah,
get you out here for some seminars coming soon. We'll have later on that, guys.
hell
So
yeah,
I appreciate you, brother. If you need me, I'm here, and we'll talk again soon.
hell yeah,
Appreciate you, brother.
yes sir.